Today we are back reanimating archons and eating way too much food. Our eyes will be as big as a pelican who can fit more in his beak than his belly can when we persist back our archons and wipe our opponent's board with our food. So, let's begin. Game 1 we have the play. We keep a hand with Urza's Sagas, some Swamp Cyclers, and a Persist. Our opponent leads on Blackleaf Cliffs and ships the turn, to which we grab an Overgrown Tomb. On our turn 2, we follow up with a Persist on our Troll, to which our opponent fires back with a Voidwalker and Furies our Troll. We tutor up an Underworld Cookbook, shock in an Overgrown Tomb, and play out our Sarinth Steelseeker. Our opponent thought seizes our Wrenn and Six, then pushes our Steelseeker, and we pack it in. Game 2, after siding in some removal and graveyard hate, we start with a hand of Urza's Saga, Cookbook, and Asmo. On our turn 1, we play our Cookbook and Saga, shipping the turn. Our opponent plays out a Cliffs and a Ragavan. We make a food on the end step, untap, fetch out an Overgrown Tomb, and hold up Bowmasters. Our opponent plays another land, goes to attacks, and our Bowmasters pings the Ragavan. Our opponent plays a Bowmasters of their own, taking out ours. We make a food on their end step and receive the turn. We untap, float a mana with Saga, shoot up a Springleaf Drum. Play our Steelseeker, make a food, find a land with the Steelseeker, and play out our Asmo, tutoring up another Cookbook. We play the Cookbook, putting an Archon to the yard, find a Persist on top with Steelseeker, and take out our opponent's Bowmasters. They push our Asmo and follow up with a Voidwalker. On our turn, we push the Voidwalker, persist back an Archon, and the opponent scoops it up. Game 3 we have the draw, keeping a hand with Push, Wrenn, Bowmasters, and Endurance. Our opponent opens with Ragavan, we shock in an Overgrown Tomb, and pass. We push the Ragavan in our opponent's turn, and they follow up with a tap land. On our turn 2, we play out a Wrenn and Six, grabbing a fetch land back to our hand. Our opponent takes out the Wrenn with a Fury and scams it back. With the trigger on the stack, we shuffle our opponent's graveyard to stop the Fury from returning to the battlefield. We play out a Springleaf Drum on our turn and hold up a Bowmasters. Our opponent Voidwalkers. We flash in Bowmasters pinging them. We find an Asmo with no discard outlet. Get in for 2 and pass back to our opponent. They find a Fable off top and smack in for 3. We thin our deck on their end step, untap and find an Urza Saga. We play it out and ship the turn. Our opponent decides to loot, and we ping them. They dash in Raggy, and we decide to trade off both of our creatures. We find a Persist and bring back our Endurance, holding up our Urza Saga. We make a construct during our opponent's end step, untap, and find a Shadow Spear. We tutor a cookbook with Saga, discard our land, and play an Asmo, finding another cookbook. We follow up with the cookbook, Shadow Spear, and attack in to get some life back. Our opponent takes it all down to 4. Our opponent sacks Void Walker to get an Urza Saga, then hard casts a Fury to take out our Asmo. We untap, finding an Endurance. After some tanking, we go to attacks and jam in. Our opponent double blocks the construct. We make a food and get in for lethal. This deck is a lot of fun to play. Being a food deck that has so many different angles to attack from has been super interesting. I've played a lot of scam matchups as well as Yawgmoth matchups, and the ability to play our linear strategy whilst also having the option of blitzing out big dummies seems well positioned. I've tried a few variants of this deck and seem to have the Jund 5-0 hanging on, with almost every league ending in a 3-2. Archon is actively weak against the ring, and with lots of rings running about, it can feel like a bit of a dud. Against decks without the ring though, it's an absolute haymaker and really crushes strategies that can't overcome it. In my testing I found that Wrenn and Six to rebuy our Sagas, and just having a Planeswalker in general feels a lot stronger than running a Fable of the Merit Breaker. The numbers for me feel like you should be playing 3 Wrenn and 6 and 1 Fable, as Wrenn is good early and Fable is a strong late game draw. But what do you guys think of the deck, and how would you change it? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next one. Catch ya.